Today I am going to tell you about how ViaSocket works, how you can implement Webhook and APIs and automate your workflow. The ViaSocket is built not only for the simple workflow but also for the complex workflow. Whatever complex or simple workflow you have in your mind, you can build using the ViaSocket. So what ViaSocket says, collect data from anywhere from using the Webhook, send data to ViaSocket, and from the ViaSocket you can connect to multiple APIs. So here is the example. You can collect data from your own system or any third-party tool, and from there you will get the data on the ViaSocket, and from the ViaSocket you can forward the data to any other API or your own API. And after connecting, between the connecting and integrating the Webhook and APIs, you can also include or add a script using three languages supported by ViaSocket. First is JavaScript, second is Python, third is Ruby on Rails, and also ViaSocket is coming up with the PHP language so that you can write the script in the PHP language. So let me tell you how the workflow works in the ViaSocket. Here we are going to take an example of Webhook. So how you can collect the data through the Webhook and forward the data to third-party APIs. You can also set up schedule-based event. It can be run automatically by daily, by hourly, by weekly, by monthly. You can decide whatever schedule you wanted to create. So first you need to generate the ViaSocket Webhook URL. Once you generate the ViaSocket Webhook URL, now you wanted to send the data on the ViaSocket Webhook URL. To send the data on the ViaSocket Webhook URL, you need to connect that ViaSocket Webhook URL to your own code, or you can choose any third-party application like ClickUp, Zendesk, Monday, or any application. Almost every application available in the market provide the Webhook option. You need to go to their Webhook space, their Webhook feature, and you need to put the URL you will get from the ViaSocket. Once you update the URL on the on your or other platform, you will start receiving the data. Once you start receiving the data on the ViaSocket, whatever event you have subscribed over your third party application or you are sending the data, you will get the data accordingly. All the data would be in the raw format, either it can be in the query parameter format or it can be in the JSON format, the array and the object format. So whatever format your tool is sending the data, ViaSocket will receive that data and that data will be shown here. Once you see the data, you can pick the data. If you are receiving the data in the JSON format, you can convert that data in the query parameter format using a script option. You need to build a script that will complete your JSON into a query parameter. And if you are already receiving in the query parameter format, you can just click on the parameter you wanted to receive. Here in the example, I am receiving 6-7 type of data query parameters. I'll just click over the checkbox and pick the data. Whatever data I have picked, the data would be shown here. From here, I can decide what condition or what API or what script I wanted to run over this data. So here I have used if condition, that is country code equal to India. That means if the condition match, then only run the HubSpot API. So the country code I am receiving from my data, and if I receive country code equal to India, then only this condition will match and the HubSpot API would be called. Whatever API I am applying in the HubSpot, there can be any API like to get contact or to update contact or get delete detail or any kind of API HubSpot is providing. It's completely open platform. You can update any kind of API from the HubSpot. Even you can go in the HubSpot documentation, you can check all the API you wanted to use and you can copy that API and implement that API in the ViaSocket. Once you implement the API, whatever response you are receiving from the HubSpot, for example, you are receiving a complete array of all contexts you have in your HubSpot, you can again run a script and can modify the data and then can get some response. To check it what response your script is creating or showing you or doing, or if there is any error, you have to click on the dry run button. It's available on the ViaSocket platform. When you dry run, it will run complete flow, not the complete flow, just only that particular script, that particular API, and it will show you the response it's showing, it's giving you. So here I am receiving response Indian underscore client in the parameter format, in the query parameter format. I can again receive this response and can pick this response to use in the further APIs. So here I have picked the response and forwarded it to Slack. Now if I wanted to build or any other feature or any other further flow, I can implement if loop and script condition, and it is all these three features are already inbuilt. So you just need to click here and it will pop up and ask you the parameters in the script or if or loop condition needed. So what we claim that you can build your 90% of backend using the ViaSocket. Why we are claiming that? Because every time you write the code, you use the API, you use the script, and you write the conditions or the loop. This is the only 4 or 5 things work in the coding. That's why we are claiming this. And to support it, we have the 3 languages right now. That's JavaScript, Python, and Ruby on Rails. And soon we are going to launch PHP and build function in build library, so that you can write the complete script, and the execution time right now is 20 minutes. So for the languages, you can run 20 minutes of execution length of scripts. Now if we talk about the features that we have in the ViaSocket is cron, repeater, webhook. So cron is something similar to scheduler when you wanted to run the complete flow. Webhook is to ViaSocket will provide you a URL from where you can get the data from any other tools or your own code. If loop and script condition is already written in built features, you just need to click and start implementing it. If we talk about the team collaboration, so you can invite n number of members in your project, in your organization, and all the members can build flow in similar project or in the different project. It's completely depending upon the permission they have in the organization. Now triggers is a delay condition. When do you want it to run the API? For example, you are using three different steps, and 2 steps should be run immediately, and the third step should run after 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So you can make the delay accordingly. Now when we talk about the debugging, I will show you how debugging works. In the ViaSocket, you need to go to the logs part in the ViaSocket, and from there you can debug everything. You would be able to visualize what response you are receiving and what data you are sending in the flow. For the every step you can check it. Now the variable are here are something similar to global variable. So whenever you write code, you declare some variable as a global variable. In here in the ViaSocket, if you are declaring some variable as a project variable or the global variable, not only you, your team member can use this. For example, I have account over the Airtable and I want everyone to use that account with the similar authentication key, so that if I need to change the authentication key, I will change the global variable and replacement will be happen in every flow automatically. So this is how global variable work. And IP restrictions, so you can define from which server you want to receive the data, or if you wanted to stop receiving the data from a particular API or want to restrict other APIs. So this is how IP restrictions work. Spam detection, if you are receiving data continuously from multiple sources, or if you are receiving data in every second, the similar data would be there, so we consider that spamming. And if you also think that something is going wrong, you can enable the spam detection filter, so it would automatically remove repeating data or repeating API calls. Log feature is there, and function is again something similar to global variable, there would be the global function. If we talk about the pricing, it's straightforward. In every plan, you will get all these features and all the language support as well. And the first plan is 1500 tasks per month. It's a very used plan. Maximum user who have not do not want to build a much complex flow, or do not want to build more than 10 20 to 15 flows, they would, I guess, should fall in the free plan. So let's move to the viaSocket demo, how viaSocket looks like and how it works. So when you do the sign up, you will be landed here on the organization page. Here is my organization name. I can invite member using this, and I can make the changes in the auth key and other things, and billing part would be here. I can invite member using this feature by clicking here, and I can also decide the role of the member I am inviting. There are three different roles available: admin, collaborator, and one more role available. Now when I land here, I have to choose a project, or I need to create a project. So there would be the projects, and inside the project there would be the flows. So for example, I am choosing a project. For example, I am choosing notifier as a project. Now in the notifier, I am going to first, I need to set up when I wanted to run this flow, or when I wanted to get the data, or when I need to repeat the flow. So here is the endpoint. You need to click on the endpoint button. First is the endpoint. Endpoint is Webhook. Second is the repeater, and third is the form. If we talk about the endpoint, that's a Webhook. So whenever you will receive data on the Webhook, the flow will automatically run. Now the second one is the repeater. That means when and how you wanted to run the flow. Every day, every minute, every hour, you can define it here. Now here are the endpoint, and third endpoint is form. We will come up with the form later. It's a form building. You can build a complete form, something similar to Typeform, and can get data from there. And once the form submitted, you can run the flow. So here is the list of endpoints I have created for my flows, and here is the list of the flows I have connected to the endpoint. So here is an endpoint. It's a Webhook endpoint. I can see it's an endpoint. If I go to the repeater, I can see how many repeaters I have created. If I go to form, I can see how many forms I have created. So in the endpoint, I'm receiving data from the Webhook, and I have connected a flow. Every time you will create a new endpoint, it will ask you to connect a flow, something similar like that. When you will click over here, here would be the option to create new flow, or add existing flow if you have already built it. So I will tell you how you can build a flow, or how you can create the new flow. When I click on the create new flow, it would ask me the name of the flow. For example, I am giving it the testing as a name of the flow. So I will move to the from data source to the workflow. So here in the dashboard are the endpoints, and all the endpoints are connected to the flow. Now here in the workflow, I need to build, I'm receiving the data here. Yeah, these are my global variables which are available, or someone in my team have created as a global variable. So therefore I am able to see it. Otherwise, I need to receive the data from whatever data I am receiving from my data source. That's the data source is the testing data source, this one. So let's send some data over here. I have sent data over the flow. Now the flow is connected to testing. When I will go to the testing flow, here is my testing flow. It's showing me that last invocation done a second ago. That means we recently have received the data. Here is the name and the mobile number we have received. I need to pick this data so that I can forward this data to next API, or in the next script. I can rename the parameter name. variable name. For example, I am renaming it like name underscore name, and the mobile can be picked as it is, or it can be also renamed. Whatever data you are receiving, you can see the data. Here can be data in the JSON format as well as in the query parameter format. If you are receiving the data in the JSON format, you need to pick the complete JSON format, and you need to run a format script that will convert your data into the again the query parameter format. So here are two variable names which I have picked. It's in red color right now, but once I connect it with some API, it will in the okay. So it's in the color because I have received the data here. If there is no data, it would be in the red color. Now where I want to use this parameter, so I have decided to use this parameter in the function is nothing, just API, or we can say applications, and the script. These two things fall in the functions. Now there is the inbuilt if, loop, and script option. If I go to import function, so here is the function option. I need to define which function, which API I am going to use. If I am going to use a new API, I need to click here, come up over here. Here is a marketplace option, but there are not much APIs available in the marketplace. So you can go to the any API documentation you wanted to use, and you can import just curl from there. You just need to go in the any API documentation available like Airtable and others, Salesforce or HubSpot. Go there, copy the curl, paste it here, and import it. It will import your complete API. For example, I have imported Airtable API to create a new entry. It's just for the testing and the dummy purpose. And here it is asking me for the raw parameters. That is the raw name, column name, and there can be n number of parameters it can ask, and I have defined them as a dollar. Whenever I use dollar, that means it's a variable, it's a dynamic variable. I can change it again and again. If I'm not using dollar, if I'm just writing anything, it's fixed. So whenever this API will run, it will automatically send a fixed parameter name. It won't go to the data source and check the data, and it dynamically, it won't send dynamically. If I am receiving the data in the, if API required post or get method or required variables in the body, so you can go to the body and can make it. Let me show you some example. So here is the SendGrid API which is connected as a function, and here are some dynamic variable like recipient email ID is dynamic, name is dynamic, other every detail here I have created is the dynamic detail. So this is how it's look like. You can create a similar, and whenever you will use the dollar sign, it will show you over your workflow when you will import it, like what are the dynamic variable. Let's import both these APIs so that you would be easily understand how it works. So here are two dynamic variable that Airtable API needed to be run, which function we have created. So I will pass it here. I will pass the name underscore name, that the parameter we are receiving from the webhook, and here I can pass the mobile number or anything else whatever I'm receiving. When I will click on the dry run, it will run the API and show me what response we are receiving. It's right now showing 400 error because the API is not correct API. It's the dummy API I have used. If we import other API, first I need to update the mapping. Let's update the mapping. So the mapping has been updated. I can rename this function. Let's import one more API or one more app. SendGrid I am going to use. This flow is already built. Okay, oh sorry, this function is already built inside the function, therefore I am able to use it. If you wanted to use a new function that is not built in the functions page, you need to go there. You need to first build the function there, then only you would be able to use it. So I'm using the SendGrid API for the dummy purpose to showing you guys. Here are the few parameters which are dynamic parameter which needed to run this API. If I wanted to make some changes and want to make it fix parameter, do not want to use that dynamically, so either I can write everything here fixed, or I can use it as a dynamic variable. So whenever the API will run, the email subject would be dynamically received as the name underscore name. So what value I will receive in the email subject? That's Ravi. So this is how it works. When I will check here in the header, I did the authentication. Here is my authentication key already integrated in the functions. So it's not showing authentication key here. If I need to make some modification in the function, I need to click here and go there and will make the changes in the function. If I run, I wanted to check how this API is responding, whether it's sending mail or not. So I just need on the dry run button, it will automatically ask me all these parameter. If I click on the OK button, it will send the response. If I want to use this response, I can use this response, pick this response and use it further. I received this response. Now after receiving this response, I can see how many response I have received and what parameter I am forwarding in every API, in each API. So here I am forwarding these two parameter. Here I am forwarding all these parameters, or the API needed all these parameters, and I am receiving response from there as a parameter, and I am going to use further. So here I am going to write a script, and I am going to use, you can write JavaScript, Python, Ruby on Rails. So I have created an script. What this script is doing, let's check. It's sending, it's using the name and it's returning the name. So this is how the API and the script work, and this is how you can build your complete flow. Okay. Now if we talk about the if condition, so if condition is already there, so I have to again write the if condition. For example, I am writing if condition over here. If name is not equal to Ravi, then only run the something, or then do something. So I have created this script. Now I want SendGrid API to be run only if name is Ravi. So I just drag and dropped it inside the condition. So this is how you can build n number of condition inside one another. If you want to use the AND operator here, you can use the AND operator. If you wanted to use or other operators, you can use it easily in the if condition. So there can be multiple operator can be used in a single if condition. If we talk about the loop, I can run loop completely in the collection, in the array, or I can iterate in a single item. So how the loop works inside this? So here is an example. When you will do the sign up, you can check it how the loop works. We do not have right now any data which can be looped or which can be shown using the loop. Therefore we are skipping this part, but you can create the loop. For example, we are creating a dummy loop, and once the dummy loop is created, what you wanted to send, for example, I am receiving multiple entries in the JSON format from the Google Sheet, and I wanted to send every row to HubSpot. So I will iterate something from the Google Sheet, the data from the Google Sheet, and I will run here HubSpot API, so that every time this function will run, it will automatically keep sending the data to HubSpot API. So this is how function work. Oh, sorry, loop work. Now, if we move to functions part, so function are the APIs and the script you are using or you have built. For example, you wanted to use Gmail API or HubSpot API or a spreadsheet API. So you need to build that as a function first, then only you can use them in a workflow. So let's understand how you can build a function. So here is a marketplace available. We do not have much API in the marketplace, but it's open. You can build from the scratch, or you can paste any API or any curl directly. So here if I search something, for example, create. So here are few API like Monday API is already available that will create a notification in the Monday, and here would be some body parameter that might be asking before running the API. So here are some parameters the API needed to run. Now if I do not find the API I wanted to use, what I will do, I will build my own. So when I will click over the add function, I can create and build my own API, or I can build my own JavaScript from the scratch. I can define which script I am building, like JavaScript, Ruby, Python, in which language I am building it. So this is how you can create. Now if I want to use a new function, or we can say if I want to use a new API or want to create a new API, I can do that. For example, I did it. Okay, it's not working. You have to implement correct curl URL, then only you would be able to build the right function. Otherwise you need to create it from the scratch as I shown. So create new function, and this is the API. What are the parameters or methods you wanted to use? For example, I am using this post method. Now I have implemented a HubSpot or Salesforce API, and from here I can define whatever parameter this API needed, or I can import the complete API using the curl. Now let's move to the variable part and the logs. So in the variable I can define any variable as a global variable manually, so that my team member or I even can use that function again and again and again in different flow in the different API. Let's move to the log part, how logs shown. So we can see all the logs I am receiving regardless the single flow. I need to choose which flow or which endpoint I am want to see the logs of. So here are all the logs available. Let's check a single log. Okay, so right now here are no logs available for the dummy. I will show the logs in different flow, but in the log you would be able to see all the data you are getting, you are receiving. This is the data you are receiving from the logs. Yeah, here is the log, we can see it. So whenever the notification new sign up flow is working, it's sending me three kind of data: the auth key, email ID, and source. And after that, it's running a condition which is true, and then successfully API is running. When I will check the API, I can see what data or request I am sending and what response I am receiving from there. So 202 request is I have received, and I also can see the headers given in the return from the API. Similarly, I can check it for all the APIs also, as well as for the script. So what script has been written? Perfect. So this is the complete system about the WireSocket, how WireSocket can work, how you can build the function, how you can build the workflow, how you need to first set up the endpoints.